Customer service can make or break your Etsy shop. I'm sharing what's worked for me and the lessons I've learned along the way. Hi, I'm Carol, a retired teacher who's learned a lot from running my Etsy vintage shop. I share what's worked for me along with the stories that make each piece special. This is the second in a series of 3 basic videos about selling on Etsy. My first episode was about inventory and inventory control. This episode will be about customer service. And the third episode coming up next week will be about pricing for profit. Inventory, customer service, and pricing for profit are the 3 building blocks of a successful Etsy shop. And today we're going to take a look specifically at customer service and what can you do to make the buying experience from your Etsy shop something really special for your customer. What you would like to see is very good reviews coming back from these customers, 5-star reviews with specifics about how great their service was, how great the shipping was, and how much they are in love with that vintage item that they purchased from your shop. I'm running a few of my Etsy 5-star reviews here on the side so you can see some of the reviews I'm really proud of. Recently, I was so glad that I had a series of many reviews on my shop that talked about how well I shipped my items. I had a customer who wanted to purchase a Waterford cake plate for her daughter's wedding, but she was really concerned about me shipping it to her, and she wanted some details about how I was going to ship that to her. Well, my first inclination was to ask her to look at my reviews, and once she did that, she said, "Oh, I see that you do a good job shipping," so she went ahead and made the purchase. If it hadn't been for good reviews about my shipping, I probably would have lost that sale. Now, it's totally up to you as an Etsy seller to establish your shipping times. I choose a 1 to 3 day shipping time that seems to work very well for most of my customers. Now, there are certain times a year that I change that, though. I've mentioned in other videos that we spend October through May in Florida, and then June, July, August, and September in Michigan. When we are transitioning back and forth between Florida and Michigan, I switch my shipping time to 5 to 7 days to give me time to get my inventory moved, get myself moved, and get established at where we're moving to before I have to start packing up Etsy sales and shipping them out. That has not seemed to ever affect my sales. My sales continue on the same as ever when I just simply switch to 5 to 7 day shipping times a couple of times a year. Now, if we go on a vacation that is less than a week, I also will switch to 5 to 7 days shipping, and that works very well. Now, when we come back to Michigan for Christmas, and we generally leave Florida about December 10th, and we are back on the 30th or 31st of December. When we do that, I do put my shop on vacation mode because most of my sales for Christmas are done by the middle of December. I'm starting to feel a little shaky about mailing something, especially if someone wants to get it by Christmas time. So shutting my shop down for the last 2 years I've done this at Christmas time has also not affected my sales. What I do is, as soon as it's December 26th, I turn the vacation mode off and I turn on 5 to 7 day shipping. That gives me plenty of time to get back to Florida and ship out these post-Christmas sales. As it gets closer to the time that I'm going to be in Florida, I will reduce my number of shipping days every day. So it will go from 5 to 7 days, and then 3 to 5 days, and then when we're on our way to Florida, I switch it back to 1 to 3 days. This has not affected my traffic or my sales in my shop. I mentioned earlier that I had gotten a message from a customer who was concerned about shipping, and I was able to direct her to my reviews. I do like to make sure that I answer those messages back to potential customers, or any messages, even from people who have already purchased from me. I try to answer those back as quickly as possible, even if that means sometimes I'm answering them back at 5 o'clock in the morning when I get up. It's so important to let your customers know that there actually is a person on the other end of the line. In a future video, I will share how I pack items for transit and what my favorite shipping box is. But for today, I just want to mention that it's my hope that when the buyer opens their package from me, it's a special experience. And so I do this by including a little giveaway in the package. Usually it's stickers. Sometimes closer to Christmas it might be a small vintage ornament, or sometimes vintage postcards. But usually I send 3 to 4 really nice stickers with the order, and I also make sure that the item is wrapped really well. If I sell a wedding or anniversary item, I typically wrap that in white tissue paper before I put the bubble wrap on it, just to make it seem special. And of course, you always want to make sure that you're shipping items that are nice and clean, and any stickers that were price tags have been removed from that item. You don't want your customer getting an item from you that shows that you bought it at Goodwill for $3.99. That would be horrible. Fortunately, that's never happened to me, and I hope it never happens to you, but I have heard of it happening. So just be careful to check your items over before you send them. And also, I would encourage you to check them over for any damage that might have occurred during storage, because you want to make sure that it's in good condition before you mail it. I have had a few customers whose items arrived broken. If their item arrives broken, I ask them to send me a picture of that item. And then that proves to me that it actually is broken, and maybe I can see how I could have wrapped it better and protected a little bit more in transit. But that seldom happens. I did have a lady who purchased something from me fairly recently, and it was a 3-piece glass votive set, and unfortunately the smallest one got broken in transit. And when she messaged me about it, she requested a replacement. Well, if you sell vintage on Etsy, you know that usually you don't have a replacement for a vintage item, because usually your items are one-offs. So I messaged her back and I said I was so sorry, but we worked out a partial refund, and though she would have preferred having the item replaced, she was okay with the partial refund. Well, guess what happened? I was so excited about this. I was actually thrifting the very next week, and I saw on the thrift shop shelf the middle-size votive that went with that set. Well, that was not the one that had broken for her, so I thought, oh, I wonder if the small one is somewhere here on the shelf. And so I searched and I searched and I moved a lot of clear glass items around, and guess what? I found that item and I was so excited. So I messaged that customer right away and I said, guess what? I found your replacement, and I was able to mail that off to her right away. That's a good example of kind of over and above customer service, and I do like to give over and above customer service when I can. Another example I'll share with you is that I had a customer buy a set of vintage drinking glasses from me this summer, and I mailed them to her, and I never heard back from her at all. And I think she actually left me a review that she really liked the drinking glasses. Well, last weekend when I was resorting all of my merchandise, splitting it up between Michigan and Florida merchandise, I found another one of those glasses in my inventory. And so I mailed it off to her with a little note that said, I'm so sorry. I thought I mailed you all those glasses, but I was looking through my inventory and I found this, so here it is. I'm sure she'll be thrilled when she gets it. It was only mailed yesterday, but I'm sure she'll be very happy when she gets it. Again, that's an above and beyond type of customer service, and that's the customer service I like to give my customers. So that's really positive. Let's talk about some negatives. There are 3 things I want you to remember about dealing with difficult customers. I'm going to look at my notes and make sure I've got it. You'll see it right here. Number 1 is you don't have to sell to everyone. And I say this because a lot of times I will get multiple messages from someone really nitpicking about an item. Now, this isn't just a regular inquiry. You know what I mean when somebody is going over the top and nitpicking about an item before they've even bought it. Quite often, I just make up my mind. After I've answered a few questions, I don't just keep answering questions. I try to just separate myself from that. I've never had one of those people go on and purchase the item, but if they did, I would reevaluate and I might just cancel that and choose the excuse that I was unable to ship the item. I would just say I'm unable to ship that item and cancel, because if someone is going to nitpick and cause a bunch of problems sending you messages before they buy something, they're not going to quit when they've got that item in your possession. So you don't have to sell to everyone. The second thing is you don't have to accept ridiculous low offers. I recently had a customer who was interested in a piece of Waterford glass from me. It wasn't a drinking glass, it was a trinket dish. And he asked if I would sell it to him for $30 rather than $40. And I thought about it and I thought, well, that's 25% off. So I sent him a coupon code for 25% off. And he must have been trying to complete the sale, and I got a desperate message from him saying, "What? You're charging almost $20 for shipping? Where are you?" And so I calmly answered him back and explained that I use calculated shipping, and all I do is put in the weight and the size box I'm going to be shipping it in, and the post office makes the determination of how much it's going to cost. And at the end of that message, and if I can find it, I'll put it here for you to see, of course with the customer's name not available. But I ended that message with saying, it's okay if you don't buy it. And in my heart, I was thinking, I really hope this guy does not buy this. And he did not buy it. So I was happy about that. And guess what? A week later, I sold it to someone else for the $40 I was asking for it. So it worked out just fine. You don't have to accept lowball offers. The other thing is you need to always be the nice one in the exchange. Now, I'm probably known in my family as being someone who is not always the nicest person. Sometimes I even get a little passive aggressive. So I try to fend off those feelings and genuinely give the customer the benefit of the doubt, and I try to be the nicest one, or the nicer one in the exchange between the two of us, because I want that person's experience talking to me to be positive. Because you know what? I would say 98% of the customers who contact you are genuinely interested in buying your item. They're genuinely interested in the well-being of that item when it's shipped, and they're not out to undercut you or lowball you or cause problems for you. There's just one every once in a while that tries to do that. But if you just always try to make it your goal to be the nicest one in the exchange, that really will pay off, because people really do appreciate that. So good customer service really does pay off. Just last night, I got a review from a customer who has bought 2 items from me in the last 2 weeks. I think she discovered my summer clearance section, because I think both items were from there. But that's okay, because I want to sell that stuff. Anyways, she was just so complimentary, and I'll put it here for you to see. And she said, "Oh, I certainly will buy from you again." And that just really warmed my heart. And guess what? Within 20 minutes of her putting up that particular review, she did indeed buy another item from my shop. Before I forget, another thing that you can do to make your customers' buying experience special is to make sure that those automatic messages that go out to customers when they buy something are very pleasant. And you go into your Etsy settings to set that automatic email that goes to customers to assure them that their package is on its way. So check that out. Probably in a future video we can talk some more about that, but I just happened to think about that and I wanted to include that here because that is one of your first exchanges with a customer after they have bought an item. Even if you kind of forget that email is going out, it is. Thank you so much for watching today. I have really been blown away by the number of subscribers that we're picking up and the number of views that we're getting and likes that we're getting. And I'll tell you what, those comments are really warming my heart. It is so encouraging for people to overlook all the little bumps and nooks and crannies in my videos and say, oh, I'm so glad you're doing this. I can't wait to see some more of your videos. That really means a lot to me. So thank you for being here. In the next video, we are going to explore pricing for profit, because if you can't make a profit, what's the point of having your shop? Thanks so much for watching today.